Hey guys, Kellen again here with Droid Life doing our final comparison with the Galaxy S4. So we've already looked at this device versus the HTC One. We've also done a full-on overview of hardware and sort of some software. But now it's time to compare it to last year's flagship, which is the Galaxy S3. And if we have time, we may look at some Nexus 4 comparisons too. But with these devices being released, I think closer than most of us had expected, one's got to wonder, is it really worth the upgrade? You know, what are the big differences? And, you know, should you jump to the S4? Should you stay put? Should you wait for the Galaxy S5? What should you do? So let's compare them a little bit. Let's talk first about specs just in general. So on the Galaxy S4, you're looking at a full HD, so 1080p, 5-inch Super AMOLED display. Basically the first of its kind. Is the only device with this display. It's absolutely gorgeous. On the Galaxy S3, you're looking at a 4.8-inch Super AMOLED HD, and it's only 720p. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's definitely a lower resolution. You've got 306 pixels per inch on the Galaxy S3. You have 441 on the Galaxy S4. So quite a big difference there. On the insides, you're looking at a 1.5 gigahertz Snapdragon S4 dual-core processor inside the Galaxy S3. With the Galaxy S4, you're looking at a 1.9 gigahertz quad-core Snapdragon 600 processor. So basically the newest processor, most powerful from Qualcomm you can get in here. Each device has 2 gig of RAM. They also will support 1632, or I should say, they come in 1632 or in some cases 64 gigabytes of internal storage. But you also have micro SD slots in both with support up to 64 gigabytes there. So you can buy the 16 gigabyte versions of the device and then throw a big 64 gig SD card and you should have plenty of storage. So the same thing there. We have an 8 megapixel camera on the back of the Galaxy S3. We have a 13 megapixel camera on the back of the Galaxy S4. If we get a little bit closer here, you can see they both do sort of have the famed nipple, if you will, that the HTC One X made famous last year. I would say that the nipple on the S4 is a little bit more pronounced, and that's because it's a 13 megapixel sensor, which is going to be a little bit bigger than the 8 megapixel sensor on the S3. So you can kind of get a good view there. You've also got a flash to the bottom on the S4 and to the left on the S3. The speaker on the S4 is down here at the bottom. If you can see that. There we go, down here at the bottom. So there's your speaker. On the Galaxy S3, they put it up top in sort of a really ugly metal tin housing. All right, so as far as specs continued, you've got LTE, GSM, CDMA, Wi-Fi, NFC, all that good stuff, right, that you would expect on any sort of flagship device. The Galaxy S3 comes in marble white and pebble blue, and then they released, I think, a black version and a red version and a purple version and all that stuff. At launch, the Galaxy S4 is going to come in black mist, which is what you're looking at here, and then white, and I'm not sure if they're calling it marble white again or what they're calling it, but there's a white version as well. Okay, so if we do a tour of the outside then, up top, not a lot of differences. You're looking at 3.5mm headphone jacks, noise-canceling mics. But the Galaxy S4 actually has this little slot right here, which I believe to be the infrared or IR blaster that they included with the device, so you can use it as a TV remote, which is kind of cool. So that's on there, and that is not on the Galaxy S3. If we look at the right side, you've got your power lock switch, just a little bit different design, but in the same exact spot, and that's all you've got on this right side. If we flip it over to the left side, you've got volume rockers in different positions, but you know, on the same exact side. So you've got a little bit lower here on the S3 and you've got it a little bit higher here on the S4. Nothing else there. If we go to the bottoms, you've got micro USB ports, which are also MHL ports, and you've also got microphones down there. That is your bottom. Again, here's a look at the back. We'll get a little bit closer here. So on the Galaxy S4, you've got what appears to be sort of a textured or dotted pattern on the back. You can get sort of a look at it there. It doesn't actually feel like anything other than just a smooth, glossy plastic back. So these sort of mini dots you can see on here, which are sort of a nice effect, you can't actually feel any of that, just smooth plastic back. On the Galaxy S3, it's just pure white. You don't have any sort of texture or anything. So again, just glossy back with your logo, Galaxy S3 there, Galaxy S4 there. So the feel of them on the back side is identical. This just looks like it has a texture to it. On the front, you can see bezel-wise, there's almost no edge when you look around the Galaxy S4, and on the Galaxy S3, you can see there's quite the thick bezel going around here. So they've really slimmed that up a lot. We're looking at 133 grams for the Galaxy S3 and 130 grams for the Galaxy S4, so lighter device. You're looking at 8.6 millimeters thick on the Galaxy S3 and 7.9 millimeters thick on the S4. So the S4 is lighter and thinner. I think I already mentioned that. And you're not going to be able to really tell looking at it side by side. And actually, I think the S4 looks thicker just because it doesn't have that sort of tapered backside. But according to their information, it actually is thinner. All right, so when you're holding these in hand, the Galaxy S4, it's a different feel, right? The Galaxy S3 almost feels better in hand just because it does have this sort of contoured pillow-like back that you find on, the HTC One. It's sort of this really rounded, supposed to fit in your palm really nicely design. You can sort of see the edge running up there. The Galaxy S4 to me feels a lot more squared off than Galaxy devices have in the past. I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. It's definitely still rounded. It's not sharp or anything or going to hurt your hand while you're holding it. But in hand, you can definitely feel this sort of wider edge to it, and when the Galaxy S3 actually feels pretty thin because it's a lot more tapered at the edge than the Galaxy S4 is. So I think at dead center, a Galaxy S4 must be thinner, but when you look at it from the side, the Galaxy S3 actually looks a little bit thinner. But in hand, they both feel like a Samsung device, plastic, light. I don't want to say they don't feel premium, but if you're one of those people that thinks Galaxy phones, Samsung phones feel plasticky and cheap, you're not going to feel any different when you pick up the Galaxy S4. It feels just like the S3. They both have a plastic feel to them. All right, so if we look at the bottoms here, you can see the navigation button setup. So it's exactly the same, although the button on the S4, you can see it's a lot more round and uniform, I would say. And the Galaxy S3's button looks a little more tapered off towards the bottom, if that makes sense. The button on the Galaxy S4 also feels really flush to the device. So when you press it, it doesn't feel like there's necessarily much of a gap or there's a different click in general. I like the button better on the S4. I should also point out that it's the same back-end menu. It's the same back-end menu setup. Those haven't changed and probably never will change if Samsung has their way. So those haven't changed at all there. As far as TouchWiz goes, we're looking at it's a newer version of TouchWiz, but basically the same. So I'm not going to necessarily go through it. It looks a lot similar. If you've seen the TouchWiz on the Note 2, I would say it actually mimics the Galaxy S4 more than the Galaxy S3 version, but either way, you're going to know how to work everything if you've played with the Galaxy S3 or Note 2. It's TouchWiz. It looks the same. It acts the same. There's just some added features like Air View and some gestures and things like that. So you do have Android 4.2.2 on the Galaxy S4 out of the box. I believe we're still on 4.1.2 with the Galaxy S3. A lot of the features software features that are packed on the Galaxy S4 are coming to the Galaxy S3 at some point. I would assume it's going to be a few months out just so people have a real reason to buy the Galaxy S4. Because the big sell here is going to be software features. Since the device, while it's an upgrade, right? It's a bit better display, better processor. I think it would be tough to argue with somebody that it's that big of a upgrade over the Galaxy S3 to get somebody to drop their S3 for the S4. Unless you're just a Galaxy fanboy and you need to pick up the newest version each and every year, then by all means, you should do it. It's an upgrade in almost every sense of the term upgrade, if that makes sense. Just not a major upgrade, I wouldn't say. But it's definitely faster, got all the new tech in it, and is probably going to be another winner by a landslide compared to any other device on the planet. So that's just a quick comparison. Galaxy S3, Galaxy S4. Definitely very similar, but at the same time have a lot of subtle differences going on. So anyways, check out the full review. Check out our comparison against the HTC One. And we are Droid Life. Peace.